So I'll call the meeting to order. So as far as the roll call goes, I'm looking through, I see Councilmember DeZiel. I'm just going in order on my screen. So I see Tyler, I see Mary, Rachel, Sherry, Lindsay, Jordan. Am I missing anybody?
I see Mr. A.E. Burgess, whose name I don't know. Is that
Andy?
Oh, sorry, Andy, there you are. You're actually on the camera too. I missed you. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So we got Andy here too. So we, like I said, we do have a quorum. And so I think we might as well get going. So with that, the first item we just had, which we'll have with most meetings, is approval of the minutes. So if anybody has any questions about the minutes, things like that, now's the time to bring something like that up. Otherwise, if the minutes are okay, we can, I guess, just approve by consensus, really.
Yes, so moved.
Any changes or anything? If not, are we all okay with them?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So now the next part, we talked about this last meeting, chair and vice chair. So I had a few people reach out about, what that role really is. Honestly, the vice chair doesn't do much, but backs up the chair if the chair can't be there. And the chair's role is to kind of do what I just did, is kind of run the meeting a little bit, go through the agenda items, that sort of thing. But then the bigger part of the chair's role is representing the committee. So let's say like the council, something comes out of this committee where we want the city to do something. Generally what would happen is the chair would then attend the council meeting and sort of present what the request is, answer any questions on behalf of the committee, those sort of things. So that's usually the main role of the chair, besides running the meeting, is to represent the committee, mostly like in front of the council. So if we have some sort of recommendation that comes out, whatever. So, I haven't heard from anybody that's interested. So I guess at this point, it's just sort of wide open. If somebody, I would say, let's start with the chair first. Is somebody interested in serving as chair for the meeting?
I'm interested in serving as chair. Would you like me to add some more as to why? So I would really like, I know that change is really hard for anybody, and I've been through a lot of change with all of the moves that I've done. But I think that what we really need to focus on with this group is, what is it that our residents need? What is it that our city needs? How can the mayor and the city council support us? And this is really just, there's so much, since this is a new committee, we're really kind of learning what to do. What I would like to say is, I think the most important thing for me is that our people here in Hudson feel safe. And how is it that we can help this occur? How can we be the solution? What part of the solution can we be? So that for me is really the most important going forward with this committee.
Wonderful.
And this is Sherry again. I don't know how I'm transmitting. I don't know what our rules of order are, but if it's required or if it's better, I would just like to nominate Rachel. I do know some of Rachel's background, that she is Latina, that she spent a lot of time living elsewhere in California, and also a lot of time living in Europe. And when I talked to her, and we've only met, I think, the one time, Rachel, long ago, after we both realized we were on the committee together. But you have this background where you've seen the world from many perspectives, and you bring the other thing that I'm going to tell you some stories about this woman. She's president of the Women's Club in Hudson, which maybe isn't her ideal fit, but sometimes people see her and think she's the hired help because she looks Latina. And so in this white affluent community, we see somebody like Rachel and assume that they must be the help. And she wasn't saying that in at all in an angry way, but it made me realize again how I pass pretty well, and so I'm treated like a white woman. But sometimes if we can't hide our identity, like we're trans and we speak with a deep voice, or if we have colored skin, or God forbid we wear a turban, this is really a tough place to be. It really isn't. And I went through the survey in detail. Thank you so much, Aaron. I really poured over the last couple hours. And that survey, I think, underscores what Rachel says and also gives us some compass heading towards what the biggest issues are as determined by these 111 people, a pretty not bad sample size, and what the biggest gaps are. So in going through the survey, I found that instructive as at least for initial discussion on what do we think the main concerns are as expressed by the population. And if we don't like the survey, one of our action items could be another survey. But this underscores, or this reinforces what Rachel says. And again, I just know that she's lived here a few years. I've lived here 15, but I think that she brings that outside perspective and seeing the world from a non-privileged point of view that would make her really well suited. So there, that's it.
Thank you.
I have a question in regards to a point of order with because some of us are only here for a short term. And so the mayor's appointees are longer, correct?
Correct. So there's 2 appointees that actually have a set term of either 1 or 2 years.
Okay, so I guess I was just kind of, if you're only a short term, how effective we're going to be overall, because I want to assure that our voices are heard, yet our continued message stays pretty consistent. And what I can see, especially coming from a corporate background, is that when you have a lot of turnover, the message kind of gets watered down. So I was that was a thought.
Sure.
You know.
And I guess I'm not sure, Rachel, what council district are you in? I don't remember.
Weber.
Okay. Yeah. So, oh, that's right. We talked about that a little bit. So, yep. So there could be a potential issue with that. But then the other part of it is that there is still going to be an at-large appointment that can be made even after this election. So even if technically maybe Rachel's not able to stay on because of the redistricting and things like that, because in that district, she may still be able to be appointed on as an at-large and continue. And I think that the goal with this is some continuity as well, because it's such a new committee. So my hope is that it should not come into be a problem with this. I think we should be able to still continue on with Rachel.
Andy, if I recall, isn't this what you do for a living?
Yes.
Yeah, so, and Rachel, I think you're great, but I think as we're starting this committee to really get it going, if we really want to get going in the direction that we're all hoping to, I kind of feel it would have a great amount of comfort. I don't know how long you're appointed on or you're on for, Andy. I don't know what district you're in, but having someone who, I mean, Rachel as a vice chair, maybe, and Andy as a chair is something that I would be on board for, simply because he has the background to do it. He knows, he doesn't have to remake the wheel, right?
Correct. But having said that, I adamantly did not want to come in with a set, if you know something so well, you come in with a part of ideas, right? You come in with this plan of action. You come in with this, I want to do it. And I want to be a part of something different. I want to, especially living here for so long, well-traveled, just dealing with a lot of different diversity issues and communications. I wanted to be able to support it from the background and not necessarily the face or the voice. And my only concern was continuity. I think Rachel is ideal. I totally was aboard, but my only question was, wow, then we lose her. But I just found a loophole because we can bring her on. So that's why I'm kind of smiling. I wouldn't mind being a vice chair, but I really just didn't want to lose the continuity, and I didn't want our messaging, because I think that we're gonna come across as a really sound committee. I think that we're gonna hit the ground running. So.
Well, then maybe you'll consider being vice chair then and back Rachel up, because like I said, I don't have a problem with Rachel either. I'm just trying to make sure that we have, it's always good to have experience as a backbone too.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I agree.
I have a point I'd like to add too, is to supplement what Andy just said. The flip side of picking some of the mayor's appointees to lead this would be that the mayor pulled some stuff at the last minute. For instance, Mary is she's held office twice, and in the desired attributes for a candidate, we're supposed to be non-political. And when she was,
Whoa,
let me finish.
Sherry, just stop.
Mary,
No,
you had let me
there was
finish
no
my-
stunt pulled.
Mary, let me just finish this.
No, because
The
you're
mayor
accusing,
selected-
Mary, you don't have to
you're being
interrupt.
accusatory.
I want to go on the record that the mayor has 3 picks and none of them should be chair, because the last thing we want is the appearance of cronyism and nepotism. 2 people from the same family, friends of the mayor, brought in, makes this whole thing look like if you were in charge. I'm just saying, makes it look like.
Well, first, I didn't even suggest that I become chair. I don't want to be chair. So why you have to bring that up? I asked for Andy. So why you would bring that up? Please don't start judging me in a diversity committee. Yeah, you are. You've literally just judged me.
The mayor.
Do you know much about my history?
Can we put this on a sidebar? I would really like not to have a whole hour of confrontational conversations. So I would really, I want Mary to be able to have an opinion about what she heard, but I'd also like us to be respectful of all of our opinions. I'd really like us to be able to move in a direction of unity. And I think that there are times when we may feel something, but it may not necessarily be fact. So opinions are important, but let's remember why we're here. And it cannot start with that,
Andy, I agree. And I believe I said at the last meeting that I want us to not keep pointing fingers. And Sherry, it's the 3rd time now. You did it twice in the last meeting, you're doing it now. I'm not a confrontational person. Actually, I don't think you know anything about my background at all. Because if you did, you wouldn't be talking like that.
I'm not picking on you personally. I'm saying it's too bad the mayor picked a politician held office twice, which shouldn't have been.
When was the last time I was a politician?
You are 2 people in the same family. You're a built-in voting block. That's crazy.
Again, let's sidebar that. We can talk about that offline. Let's just not continue down this path. I think that we have a nomination for a chairperson. I think that I'd like to go forward with that nomination because I think it's a solid nomination.
Yes.
Me too.
I second this for Rachel.
So we've got Rachel nominated as chair, and I believe we have Andy as vice chair as a nomination as well. Is there anyone else that would like to throw their name in for chair or vice chair? So if not, then I would assume that is by consensus that we're approving Rachel as chair and Andy as vice chair. Is that correct? All right.
Fine.
Thank you.
Good. All right, we got that. So I can, Rachel, turn the meeting over to you if you'd like, and run through the agenda if you want. Would that sound good?
Oh boy, it's right here. Okay, but I may need some help moving forward with
no,
this.
I'll definitely help out. No problem.
Okay, so then I would like to move forward with just a quick message. I'm moving forward with this, that we're all coming from a positive intent in this organization, in this committee. So with that said, number 4 is review the committee equity and inclusion survey results.
So I can kind of give a quick background on this. So this was done, way back in end of the year last year, into January. I don't remember exactly when it started. It might have been November, somewhere in that range. It was done as part of Polco, is a national company that does polling work and things like that for communities on a number of different issues. The city had an agreement with them to do work for our comprehensive plan update. And so as part of that, any city that was working with them, they had this kind of boilerplate equity and inclusion survey that they offered up, that if you'd like to do it or not. It is definitely something the city wanted to do, although clearly at that time we did not have any sort of diversity committee. We didn't have a real, firm direction on anything. We also did not have any input onto the survey results. It was, kind of a, here's the survey, we'll provide it to you, do that. So we did do the survey. We got a little over about 100 responses. And honestly, while we shared it internally with staff, we didn't do much with it because the thought is this was going to be an item for the diversity committee. Now, the diversity committee took longer than anticipated to get put together. I think we had some thoughts that the committee would be up and running much sooner than it was. It didn't work out that way. So, we're now looking at it as part of the committee almost a year later. And so, I guess what I would say with that is, just understand that's the situation with the survey, how it was done. And I think it was brought up by someone that, Sherry, maybe that, this isn't the be all end all with this. I think if the committee feels like the survey was, maybe a good start, but they'd like to see something more in depth, maybe other different questions, maybe now something that would be put out under the umbrella of the diversity committee, that we can definitely do that. We can work with Polco to put together whatever the committee would like to see happen if we want to do something new. So I guess that's kind of the
time on that. What would be the turnaround time on that?
I would say probably get something out there, once we identify what we want to do, and maybe it's something where we even want, maybe somebody from Polco to talk to the committee a little bit about what they've seen successful, not something like that. But we could definitely have something, out, within, I would assume 30 to 60 days, depending on, what our timing is really.
Okay.
That said, there were 111 respondents. The demographics were reasonable, representative of the population in terms of age. We had a little more representation of people who identify as female who responded. And it struck me that most people who responded seemed to have a higher than average level of education. So I think Aaron might have said some time ago, does it represent the population overall? Maybe not exactly. That said, though, 16% who responded fall somewhere within the area of people of color, Black, Asian, so people who are not white. So there was pretty good representation there. And all I'm saying about this is when I look at the survey, I would say it's a reasonable start, and 111 people is pretty good.
I saw it as a good benchmark also. I just was curious as far as if we wanted to revisit it because of the time frame around it. That was all.
I agree with you that to just understand, do we have a trend? Are things getting better or worse? I think having an instrument that's kind of released periodically is an excellent idea, Andy.
Yeah.
I would like to ask, how long was this survey open for?
I think we left it open for about almost 2 months. I think it was about 45 or so days was about the timing that we had it open. But again, as we back, out with this, the city doesn't have a public information staff or anything like that. So, I mean, we did our little part. We put it on the website. We tried to have our council members promote it on their social media. We did it on our social media, that sort of thing. But, we may get a much better response on a newer survey done from this committee, just because there's more recognition now with the committee. And then also just because our committee members can also help, push this out more, which is I would hope a much broader reach as well. So I would say that if we do any sort of additional or follow-up survey or whatever, that my hope is that we'd have a little broader reach this time. And then we're also going to be talking about later in the agenda about the committee's own webpage and social media presence and things. So I think as we establish those, we might have a much better outreach and hopefully some more respondents coming in the future if we do something more.
Okay, I'd really like it if we could all run between now and the next meeting, or maybe the meeting after that we really look at the survey, and if we have some questions that we think would be relevant to bring up in another survey, I see that as really important, because I believe I did do this survey and I found the questions were quite interesting, but I really, really do wish that we would have had more people to do it. I'd say 200 would be great. So if we could maybe aim for that, I'd say even more next time by really, bringing it up as diversity committee and also with the council members, because there's a lot of people who did not answer this survey. That's what I see. And a lot of things that we could have, we could definitely learn from that. So I'd like to definitely revisit this in the future. Maybe a question from every one of us as to, I'll figure out how to answer, ask that question later. But
I'd like to offer a summary, which I can do in writing and not consume all the time. What I liked about the survey were there were these 3 different areas, and it started with, how do you think you rank the community? Which areas are the biggest concern? And a few rows to the top, and I really like the color graph, those histograms, the heat maps. And so the worst areas are attracting people of diverse backgrounds, demonstrating respect for different culture and belief systems, respect for individual cultural beliefs, and welcome residents of all backgrounds. Those are the top ones. And then when the next part was, who are the people we think are least welcome? Number 1, surprise, Middle Eastern. Number 2, not a shocker, transgender. Number 3, not a shocker, African American. And then after that, there's LGB, not trans, or not a US citizen. But when you think about it, that makes sense. Trans people, people of color, Muslim people have been under, let's say, even under attack, really, by some extreme groups. And then it says the government ranking, we rank our government, 49% said poor. We are poor in creating a company welcoming to residents of all backgrounds. And then it talks about priorities. And so it's kind of like a cookbook. It says the highest priority should be create a diverse, inclusive, fair community, address social, economic, and racial inequity differences in jobs and housing, and in health and education. Those are the top 3 from the community. And I would just say, that's 111 voices. Does that seem like a reasonable starting point to start to identify ideas to make things better?
okay. Anybody else have anything they want to say about that one?
No, but I think I'll be able to bring in a good perspective, seeing as I'm a Middle Eastern lesbian.
Yeah.
I think I've hit 3 of those, huh? Or 2 of those. Maybe that's why, the mayor thought I might be a good appointee.
Very good. Okay. So then let me see. I did have a question that I'd asked about the census and if we had any information from the 2020 demographics of Hudson, and Aaron said that we didn't have any of those results yet.
Yeah, the hard part is that the census is just wildly delayed with COVID. Just as we all figured out with the redistricting process, usually we have months to go through a redistricting process, and we had weeks. So usually we get a detailed breakdown by about now of that. So we hopefully will have something within the next couple of months is what we're thinking. So as soon as we get that, we'll share it, because I think that'll give us a good just snapshot too of where we've come over the last decade as far as changes in our in the community and things like that. So we should have that. And then as far as the survey goes, backing up, if you want to talk about this next meeting, would you like me to invite Polko? Because they do these nationwide. They might have some real good ideas about what we can do with a follow-up survey and things like that. Would that be helpful to have a representative come into the meeting?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. That'd be great. Thank you.
Rachel, I would also, prior to us getting to that point, is to kind of speak to meeting norms and meeting, flows of meeting, the type of things that we would like so that we can move forward in our meetings and not, spin our wheels on something where we need to make a quick decision and kind of keep moving forward. So we would not want to invite some outsider unless we've established how we're going to proceed in our meeting norms.
Okay, so then maybe not next time, and we'll hold that off for another time. Maybe you and I can get together, Andy, and discuss some of this offline at some point so we can figure out how we run the meeting. Is that possible?
That'd be great.
I would like to, just from a staff point of view, say yes, please. That would be wonderful. I mentioned with the first meeting, I'm not a mediator. I don't have that background and experience. I know that Andy does. And I didn't want to take advantage of him on the committee, but if he's willing to work with you, Rachel, on identifying something like that as an agenda item and talking about it, I would greatly appreciate that. Because I know it's an important part of these meetings, especially with a topic like this.
Yes, correct.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so then the next item, number 5, social media presence discussion.
I know last meeting we talked a little bit about wanting to do our own social media, and I think somebody was gonna, and I know Tyler's in the middle of insane finals right now and all that. And also we talked about, we don't want to put this responsibility on just one member, and we don't. So we do have IT staff that can help with it. But you know, I didn't want to have our IT staff just start putting something together. I think it should come from this committee about how you want it to look and what it should say and all those sort of things. And so, you know, I'm not sure if Tyler had any chance to look at it or not, but, you know, I think if not, I would recommend, you know, we put Tyler in contact with our IT department and they can work together to create something that comes from, you know, the city, but is driven by this committee.
I think we also wanted to protect Tyler so that it wasn't just that single voice. So I think that it's important that if we do have Tyler take on this task, that there is another committee member collaborating with Tyler to assure that it's not just one voice. And I think the gentleman that brought that point up would have been an ideal person. I don't know if there's on the meeting today, but yeah.
Who was that? Was that
Yep.
Paul or Rolando?
It was me.
Oh,
Rolando?
there. Sorry,
Yeah. What's the ask again?
So we don't want, what I got from from your comments was it was very solid that we did not want her to be subjective to the type of subjections that you can be with social media. So having a support person collaborate with the individuals that's going to work on the social media, I think is ideal, that it doesn't seem like a singular attack in response. So I guess what I'm saying, the ask would be to work with Tyler in that regards.
Yeah, I'd be happy to work with Tyler. Full disclosure, I am not much of a social media user myself, and I'll do my best to lend what I can. And so, sure, but I'd be willing to work alongside Tyler.
So you're in the same boat that I am. I sold social media, and without knowing what Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, and having adult children, I was able to get up to speed very fast. So I think that you will see the haves and the haves not, and having Taylor with you, it'll be a great collaboration.
Sounds good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, look forward to working with you, Tyler.
Thank you.
So would it be reasonable? Oh, I'm sorry, Tyler, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I've thought about it a little bit. I don't know if anyone wants to like discuss more of the logistics of it right now, just like on how many times we want to post, like what our posts want to look like, stuff like that. I haven't had a chance to like make any like mock designs or anything like that, but I could just like discuss briefly what I've thought of so far if you'd like.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
That'd be awesome.
So I think it'd be very beneficial to at least post like once a month with like the heritage months. Like each month has a different kind of topic. So like February is Black History Month. June is Pride Month. There's like Latinx Heritage Month. And so it'd be very important to acknowledge those months and like some key players like historically and currently within those communities, both nationwide and within our community. We could highlight people as well. And then if we wanted to do every once in a while, just more general, like talking about different equity and diversity topics, like maybe 1 week we talk about like mental health and 1 week we talk about supporting like Asians within our community who have been affected by the anti-Asian hate with the COVID variants coming out and whatnot. And then we could just have at least once a month, maybe at most like twice a month. So nothing too big, especially as we get going. but there are like designs online that you can find that are like pre-made templates that have a lot of information. So like it'd be something where I just like preview the information and make sure it's good to go and then like post it. So it wouldn't be a lot of work for me necessarily.
I think
Tyler,
that
Tyler, have you done content management before?
Not specifically for this context, no, but I make a lot of posters as a resident assistant for my residents to look at.
Cool. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Rachel, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, do you happen to have a list already of like what each month represents in the way we do it in this culture?
Yeah, so not every month has one. So that's another thing we could talk about. Like January doesn't have a designated month. So maybe we pick something we want to focus on. Or like December doesn't have a specific month necessarily. So like on campus, we talk a lot about like the diverse array of holidays that happen at this time of year. So that's something we could explore as well. I do have a list. I was going to share my screen and show it to you or like read the list, but my laptop's being really funky right now. So that's probably something I can just email to include in the next agenda or like send to y'all at some other point. But I do have like a list of like, I think there's like 9 or 10 months that have designated things we can acknowledge.
I think that would be amazing if you could send us a list of everything that you have already, and then the different topics you would think about discussing on the months that are off months. And I'm thinking, because we're so new still, that maybe we launch something for January. I kind of like the idea of starting at the new year, but we could definitely, especially because you're probably going through finals and are quite busy right now. So what do you all think about that? January as a kind of, let's
Absolutely.
start for a month. Okay,
I agree with you.
sounds good.
I'm good with it, and just want to, let's not feel rushed to get that first one out there. I'd rather take our time and do it right, make sure we're in agreement on, and by the way, so I think January's pushing it, frankly, to review
Okay.
Tyler's ideas in detail and make a, consensus decision around this. I like pretty much everything what Tyler said though, but I would just like to see it and have us agree to it before it goes out, especially if it has our name on it collectively. I think we all have to be comfortable.
Yes. With that said, one of the things that I was thinking about earlier today is that as we're going to launch something, I think it's important to have our name clarified. What is it that we really want to be called? Are we sticking with the City of Hudson Diversity Committee? And if so, what is kind of our mission statement? Because I think that's really important to get out there in the very beginning. So
Did we have a mission that we kind of inherited in part of those documents when we first formed this?
yes,
We
I
should
think
review that.
so.
Sorry, I had to unmute there for a second. Yeah, so in the approving policy, there was a little, I mean, there was some general, background guidelines, reason, but I don't think that it was ever intended that would be the be all end all document for this committee. It was a way to get the committee started, but I feel that the council respects the committee's input on what this should look like and what this should be. We created something based on our limited kind of scope of what we were thinking, but I think it's the committee's role to take and expand that into something that they see fits what the community needs. So I definitely think that is part of what we can do.
Okay, so I wouldn't, very quickly, I don't want to necessarily hold off starting like a Facebook page on this, because I think as soon as our community here in Hudson knows that we exist and that we're here for them, the quicker the better. But I also don't want to rush into it. So I'm thinking maybe what we should do is hold it off until our next meeting to decide what is our mission statement. Can we go with what we have originally in our documents and work on that and maybe come up with maybe via email, we can send out some things as to how can we make this better, more inclusive, and then come back maybe next meeting and see if we can come up with something solid and then move forward with getting our IT involved. What do you all?
I'd like to add something. So what Tyler described was awesome. I have a feeling this social communication, the social networking should be two-way. And so if we open up the avenue for the community to respond with ideas, suggestions, or whatever, how are we staffed to receive that? Who's going to look at them, and how we're going to give them consistent, coherent responses? So this is another thing I'd like to think of before we launch this, because I think we want to be open to the community sending in their input, but how do we deal with it?
Okay. Sorry, I just saw the chat. So I think Paul Adams would like to say something.
So Chair, I appreciate you recognizing me. I think what I had written in the chat there, Sherry had already articulated.
Okay.
So I would ask that we look at that, in that whatever we put out there on social media, we could potentially be asked about that in the community. And so, you know, without overly restrictive processes, you know, we should just be able to say, yeah, I agree, and go from there. So
Okay.
that was the main point, and that's already been articulated. So I'm good with that.
And Taylor added, I could try to bring the posts to a meeting on a month in advance so we can approve them before they're posted. I think that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, and I would say we can talk through that maybe next meeting, the process for things, because sometimes, as we all know, events occur and the committee may want to put information, comments, something like that out there that we can't get approved right away. So we may want to talk about a process where maybe there's a subcommittee, the chair, the vice chair, and another member or something that can review items in between meetings, that if it's felt that it's important to get it out there and do a sign off on, yep, that's good, we should get that out there. Just because, as we know, with social media, timeliness is kind of the whole point of it. And so I think it might make sense to discuss a process next meeting a little bit more in depth about how we can, I should say the committee can release things pretty timely by just having a smaller group review and say, yep, this is important, we need to get this out as our voice.
Okay, sounds good. Jordan, I see your hand up. Sorry.
Yes. I was just going to point out that I think we also need to focus on our target audience. And, you know, if we're just making a Facebook page, it's kind of like a 30 to 60-year-old kind of range. So, I mean, going at maybe different angles at trying to get as much out there as we can.
Okay. Taylor? Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, so I was actually thinking about this, and I know you can do like posting to Instagram and Facebook simultaneously. And I know a lot of a younger demographic uses Instagram more. And so if we have a format for our posts that can be like posted to both, it's really easy to just do like that dual upload, and that might help us reach different demographics.
Okay, that sounds great. Aaron?
Yep, I see the question. So,
Thank you.
Rolando, you had a question about if there would be an expectation that the mayor would reserve the right to veto a post or anything by the committee. And no, I was saying that to be timely, to have this committee have a subcommittee to be able to release posts kind of sooner than waiting every month to kind of pre-approve them or whatever. So I was thinking like chair, vice chair, and then maybe another member of this committee would be able to, if there's something that happens, that group could just quick get together and say, yep, we should post a comment, we should post something about this, and then get it out there. So that way, you know, we can maintain the timeliness of, you know, social media and being, you know, on top of those sort of things. So no, I was not inferring at all that, you know, myself or any other elected official would have some sort of veto power or anything over that. No.
Thank you. Sherry?
Two things. One, I have somebody who texted me who says they're trying to watch this meeting on the River Channel TV. So this is for River channels out there. Apparently there's no audio being broadcast.
I got that email as well. I did pass it on to the River Channel, so hopefully they're addressing it. So
Okay. Gosh, there was something else. I think I'll let it go. Thank you.
Well, there's something to be, there's
yes,
something
go
to be
ahead.
said about if we post on, if we do stuff on Facebook, which does transfer to Instagram, that's totally correct, Tyler, that we started off as an informational type page and not a page where there's going to be lots of back and forth conversations, because it could turn really quickly into a battle that I don't think any of us want to deal with. So I think it would be really good to be an informative page, educating the community as to what we're about. I think there's a lot of rumors out there as to what the committee was, why the committee was formed. And I think it'd be nice to maybe in the month of January, that's what we focus on, about clarifying and getting, advocating it and getting it out there as to what we're all about and why we're, doing what we're doing, because all of us are volunteering our time. So I think it would be really nice to be able to get it started with a positive spin versus, just, versus having comments that we can struggle to control. So not that I want to stifle anyone from speaking. I just don't think it's a forum that we need to have debates on or those types of conversations. We're supposed to, be above that.
Yes, that's one of my major concerns, is how are we going to deal with that kind of negativity that can come into something where we're trying to be really productive and helping each other out here in the city. Any solutions, do you think, that we can think about that?
I work with Love and Logic out of the school systems. That's what we train in, is Love and Logic. And when we go into our initial conversations, we bring up the fact that love is the most powerful emotion out there. And then logic is a human way to understand one another. So we talk to putting love first before anything. And then we have a lot of different training sessions around it. I think that there's some exercises that we can talk about, that will help move that in that direction. And I think keeping it informative is very important. As if we have an informative format, that's not decided politically or religiously or any other type of, it's more educational based type of learning. So
That sounds amazing. Okay, that sounds fantastic. I see that.
I'm sorry, Rachel, if
Yeah.
I may,
Yes.
just really quickly going back, I'm going to be backtracking just a little bit. I'm having kind of a sidebar here with Jordan. Jordan brought up what is very obvious blind spot for me are all the other types of platforms aside from just the demographic that I sit in. So I think it's an interest for her, and I would recommend that she join Tyler and I, because again, all those various platforms are a blind spot. My experience with social media is from a different side, as I work with city and county government. I do have that logistics piece where I do sign off on things. I do manage content and things like that. But the actual creation of the content, how it needs to be delivered, all the different modalities, I get people who are much better at that, doing that. So Jordan has expressed it to me as this is an interest to her, and I would suggest that she be part of this.
Absolutely, that's great. That's good. Okay, so I see that we're running. I don't know how much time we usually have, but I think we should move forward here. So let's see. There is the number. So I say that we come back to this in our next meeting to be able to move forward. Any other suggestions, we'll put it as an agenda item. Number 6 is committee. That's what we just, well, is that kind of the same thing? The committee,
I think it is,
page.
yes. It's probably
Okay.
very similar. I mean, I think it would be the same conversation about having a standalone webpage on the city page for the committee, what kind of content you want on it. And then we had talked last meeting a little bit about some sort of open comment portal where people can submit comments that would, or comments, suggestions, anything that would then be sent to the whole diversity committee. And then that way we can attempt to discuss at a future meeting, address, those sort of things. So it probably is pretty much a very similar discussion for next meeting about the content, what we put on it, things like that. But I think that the thing that we would be looking for is, what do you want to see on that page, and how do you want that page to look? And we can have our staff, put that together then for the committee.
Can I ask a question quick? I assume that the committee is like any other where we have to be careful with walking quorums and what have you. So if I'm correct in that assumption, then I just want to urge that everyone does wait until we meet to have discussions versus having sidebar or outside discussions. Obviously with Rolando and Tyler and Jordan working as a group or something, that's a different situation, but I think it's really important that because these issues can be so controversial or even just diverse, and everyone brings a different perspective to everything, that we make sure that we all are discussing them, together.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay. So this number 6, and I think that we kind of need to wait on what we need to do. When do we want to set up this website to be started? Anytime soon? I think we need to kind of get what we're doing under control a little bit more before we set something up. I'd say in a couple of months. Okay. February at the latest. That sounds good. Okay. So we can discuss that a little bit in more detail next time. Any other questions about that at the moment? Does anybody want to be in charge of taking that one up? We'll discuss that next time too. Okay. So let's see. I didn't read that little comment. February. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Let's launch those around the same time. Okay, so number 7, short and long-term committee goals and discussion.
I have a question. One of
Yes.
the action items we had from last meeting was, could we please get an update from the mayor on his golden rule initiative? What are the objectives, the metrics, the strategy, what's been done? Aaron, did you follow up with Mr. Mayor on that?
So we had a pretty full agenda. I mean, the mayor's more than happy to come in. I will have him come. I thought we maybe do it like next meeting. As I look at these agendas, I start to think about, you get 9, 10, 11 items, and I think you start losing, steam pretty quick at a certain point. So I took a few things from the last meeting that I know we want to do in the future. I was kind of pushing them a little bit. So it definitely will come back. I can put it on the next agenda if that's okay.
Thank you. I was just hoping we didn't forget it. Thank you.
Nope, no.
I'm good. Thank you.
So shall we hold off with the short-term and long-term goals and discussions for next meeting? Yeah.
Let me ask Rachel, would it be helpful if anybody wanted to volunteer to send to you or send to the group? Here's some random thoughts. Would you like to collect input from people who are so motivated just to throw you some bullet points? Is that a good idea?
Absolutely.
Does that
Throw me
help?
some bullet points. That'd be great. Everyone has my email. Yeah, that would be great. So we can come up with I will look through for the next agenda. Is there anything in particular that we really want to discuss for next agenda items? Next.
So I've got a whole list here of things
You can send.
that I'll have on the agenda for you. And then just generally how the agenda stuff works is that I will work with Rachel and Andy prior to submitting an agenda moving forward. I'll say, okay, here's the items I had from last meeting. Are these all good? Do you want anything else? And then I would recommend committee members, if you have agenda items that you don't remember right now for some reason, but you think of, reach out to Rachel or to myself, and I'll make sure to include them into Rachel. And then, we'll kind of figure out the agenda based on, like we said, time and what we think we can do. And I think some of these items, we'll knock off. Other items like the short and long-term goals will probably be an ongoing discussion for a little while. Because I think, honestly, the short and long-term goals are probably going to be influenced a lot by our initial conversations that we have once we get our social media up and our webpage up, we start getting input. And then also when we talk about that survey update, that we may get more guidance, based on it. So some of these are not just one and done. There'll probably be a continuation in a lot of meetings.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up at this point? No? We're all good?
I want to say one thing, Rachel, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
First of all, I just want to thank you guys for your service to the community. And I think it's huge what you're doing. And I just encourage you to keep hanging in there. And it's going to, I think, in my mind, it's going to take several months to really come together for you guys. But I'm certainly here to support you and Rachel and Andy is stepping forward. I really appreciate that. But just thank you for your work. And I think what you're doing is super important. And so for me, it's been just really inspiring to listen to you tonight. And I look forward to supporting you guys as you continue.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Well, I guess, do you want to call the meeting adjourned? Aaron, do you have anything else to say?
No, I don't. I agree with Paul, obviously, it's still. And anytime in between the meetings, if anything comes up that anybody has questions, issues, whatever, feel free to reach out to me. I'll coordinate with Rachel and Andy, and we'll do whatever we can do to offer support and help and whatever. So just know that I'm always here as a resource, and I'm available at any point. Just let me know. I'm happy to help.
I have a quick
Thank you.
question. Sorry. How are the meetings are recorded? So how are those going to be out for like people if they ask? Like what do we tell them? Where do we direct them?
So generally what we do is we put on our website, we have like an agenda kind of meetings and agenda page on our website. And so we'll have the videos linked there. And then they're also linked on the cable channel, the River Channel website as well. So they'll be available in both places for viewing.
Perfect.
Thank you. I would like just to thank everyone. Thank you for the confidence that you have in me. I hope to not disappoint. Thank you, Andy, for stepping up for co-chair, and I look forward to working with this group. Meeting is adjourned. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.